So today is August 1st of 2024, and I am making this video describing what the Andy project is and the functionalities of it and just the overall goals. So hopefully this will be an educational experience. This is mostly just for backtracking, nothing too fancy with these videos here. So I have an engineer drawing of what the design will look like. It's basically just going to be a box with a screen in the middle that has a microphone on top and speakers on the side. Basically, the goal is Andy, the artificial neurological device, is a artificial intelligence with some pseudo personality in it. I'll explain what that is in a minute. And it will basically be a glorified Siri, and for future probably put into something more useful than just a box that you would have on the wall. So here is, I will be using a Raspberry Pi 3B currently for the computer central processing unit. It's just cheap, and I also already own this, so very inexpensive to work with, as well as coding it in Python. So currently the functionalities are going to be pretty basic stuff like list capabilities and library creation. What I mean, there's a difference between list and library. List is the literally a list. You write it down. It would be taken within the code itself. A library would have more detailed information about whatever's in it. So let's say I want to make a library for my music albums. I can do that by asking the intelligence to create the library and then have reference material. So later when I can ask it like, hey, what Green Day albums do I have? It can rattle me off everything that I have in that library. Or you could do the same thing with books or video games or literally whatever. Lists would just be generic lists. It doesn't have any special classes or characteristics within it. Next, I'd have weather capabilities, just general, tell me the time of day, what date is it, and how the weather is outside. Just something generic and simple like that. I already talked about calendar functionality, volume and brightness control. That way it won't be blasting our ears off, and it also won't be super bright in the middle of the night. And finally, one of the more advanced things is going to be language adapters. These would have the ability to either make Andy communicate in a different language or translate from a different language, if that makes sense. So maybe eventually integrate camera functionality, and I can hold up some writing of like Spanish writing or something, and it will just automatically translate on screen for me, or be able to read off something. That one's a bit iffy, but currently I've worked on this project since July 22nd, which is what the last video showed was the beginning process of it all, and it has come quite further since then. I will not be showing that off in this video. I will show it off in a separate video once I have some kinks worked out, because I'm currently working on lists and library functionality at the moment. Now, as I said earlier, it will have pseudo personality. What I'm meaning by this is it won't be a ChatGPT clone. I don't want it to really think for itself or reference the internet for ways to discuss things. Like I said, it's going to be a glorified Siri, but Siri doesn't quite have the personality, because you can tell it's just a worker drone of sorts, and you have to have key phrasing to actually get it to do what you want it to do. What pseudo personality is going to do is make it seem more personable and more like you're talking to a friend. So what I mean by this, there's three characteristics of pseudo-personality. We have variable responses, cached responses, and weird phrasing. So what I mean by variable responses is that Andy will not respond with like the exact same phrasing every single time. So if I ask him, hey, how's your day going? And he says, good, how about you? And then I ask him the exact same question again, he'll probably respond with something different. That's what I'm wanting, not by the book robotic. And this can be integrated fairly easily, doing random number generators and just having a bunch of random phrasings for words and sentences. It makes it seem that much more realistic because, you know, not everyone you talk to on the street is just going to repeat the exact same thing over and over again. I mean, yeah, they will sometimes. Like everyone has their own catchphrase or whatever, but not everyone's going to tell you hello in the same way. Next is cached responses. So that way he can just remember if you've said something to him in the conversation and be able to reference that later. That could help with repeat questions again to make him seem more personable, or to actually be able to help you understand or help him understand what you're requesting of him, if that makes sense. And finally, weird phrasing is being for Andy to understand what I'm saying, even if it is something completely off the wall. So let's say I want to ask him about what the weather is going to be like today. I'll say, hey, Andy, how about that weather? That's not a typical question that most AIs like that would respond to, because they don't understand what how about that weather means, because it's more slang-like. They would rather you ask it more, what's the weather going to be like today? Or how does the weather look? Not how about. So the way I'm going to work around that is by keyword phrasing, basically meaning if I am the keyword in that example that I gave is weather. So it will search for where the keyword is, and then it will respond accordingly with what the keyword was. So if I put weather in my sentence, it will just recognize that I'm asking it to tell it the weather, and I can respond with however I want, which works out so much easier than having to say specific phrasing every single time you want the weather. That's just really super specific examples. But that is mostly the overview of the project at the moment. Later on down the line, I would like to make a robot butler of sorts, like a Mr. Handy or a Jetsons robot, but that's way on down the line. Right now, I am working on just the intelligence side of it, which is way more easier on the pocketbook, and considering that there is no shop for this project or any budget whatsoever, it makes it way easier, and I can buff out the kinks at the moment with the intelligence. So that is the entire project at the moment. Thank you all for watching, and stay tuned for further updates. Thanks.